all of us wanted normal. And just last week or the week before, it was telling us, expect 2 more weeks of COVID, and we'd hit a peak, and and then we'd be headed down. Just last night, I was hearing that, well, we really don't know how much longer. So that adds frustration on top of everything else, and every time that we have a change or something is hitting us, it's a problem. Andy spoke about supporting the nurses when they call and using respect for the teachers and for the nurses. So I think we're at that point. With that said, I'm going to read the letter from the middle school. It's signed by 23 staff members. It's dated January 12th, 2022. Dear Rockingham administrative team and school board, our members were shocked and saddened by the lack of empathy displayed at the school board meeting on Monday, December 20. We would have expected conversation about hiring shortages, coverage, and attendance concerns. Yet in one instance, a board member brought up the need for extensive conversation around the teacher evaluation process. Rather than remind the board members that now is not the right time to focus on teacher evaluation, several administrators went into detail about the new evaluation process they plan to roll out in January. From this exchange, it is evident that the school board and administrative team is either unaware or ambivalent about the daily struggles we're facing in our school. At Bellows Falls Middle School, we've been operating with 9 unfilled positions. This puts a lot of pressure on those present to make sure students' needs are being met despite the shortage. In spite of this situation, we have not heard any plan for filling these positions other than to advertise in a typical way that has not resulted in any leads. The shortage of qualified workers has been for some time. It is time our leadership employs varied and unique ways to recruit, including a variety of advertisements and career fairs, to name a few. The shortage has also impacted our substitute teacher workforce. We began the year with 1 substitute teacher who was only available to work on Mondays and Wednesdays due to health issues. Since then, a few college students have become available on days they do not have classes. Staff members, though mostly vaccinated, are required to quarantine when they have symptoms. The result is that healthy teachers arrive at school, have to determine if any team members are out, and then quickly plan how to cover the responsibilities of staff members who are in quarantine. This might include completely changing your regular schedule, foregoing your planning period, absorbing another class, or creating 1 large grade level group to do a project learning plan on the fly. Finally, student attendance has been particularly poor since Thanksgiving. Many students have had to quarantine. Students have mask fatigue, and although we enforce rules around masks, we also cannot send students home when they refuse to comply. In one instance, a single positive student had the potential to risk an entire grade level who became close contacts when the students refused to wear their mask properly. This has created an enormous burden for the nurse and the staff who support her. It has also resulted in many parents keeping their children home to avoid using the Test to Stay program, or because they are worried about transmission of the disease. Now all the guidelines have changed once again, and we are not even sure how that will impact attendance. When the attendance level is low, which it has been on many days, it leaves the teacher's normal plans at risk. We typically cannot instruct at the level we normally would. First, the students at home will not get the same level of understanding as in-person students. Second, we will have to reteach much of this information when we return from break. It has been several weeks of lost opportunities. The bottom line is staff members and students are exhausted by this pandemic, and we deserve your support. Our building administrators are helping as much as they can in a difficult situation, but we need a district-wide plan for overcoming these obstacles. Inform us of a plan to hire needed staff. Acknowledge our work with sincerity. Recognize that we are managing and adapting plans on a regular basis. Put evaluations on the back burner for now and focus on improving morale. Realize that we're all giving more than 100% just to get everyone through this pandemic. This year has been anything but business as usual, to indicate otherwise is irresponsible. Sincerely, signed by 23 staff members. I hear your frustration. Andy, I'm going to give you to let us know what's being done.
Yeah,
These are all
so-
procedures rather than.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate that, and, I mean, I've only heard that letter, and this is the second time I've heard it, so I really need some time to kind of, I haven't received it, so to really look into it, but I think that the teachers are spot on the fact that we need to come up with creative plans for how we're going to hire and fill staffing roles. I mean, it's our typical way of putting information out there is just not working. Even admitted, you know, we have a national issue with finding staff, and you know, it's I think we are working on some things that are not fully solidified yet, that I don't feel I can go into a lot of detail about, but we are trying to work on some things there. You know, I'm meeting with the administrative team tomorrow, and we can definitely take a look at the evaluation piece, and where that puts teachers, and where does it put our staff. But our focus needs to be on our students and our staff, and making sure that we can safely operate the building on a daily basis.
Is there anyone out there, any staff or anyone else that would like to comment at this time? Because we're open to listening. You see any at all, Richard?
No, well, nobody's got their hands up. No? Oh, that's one.
Sue's hands up, and Crystal, I think. Crystal, let me call on you.
So I don't have anything formal planned to say tonight. We weren't really sure, you know, when the letter would be read. We sent it at the very end of the last week, and I'm sorry, Andy, if you didn't receive it yet. We did send you a copy. It's probably just a mail issue. I think we really just wanted to be heard, and it's hard for me to speak for lots of people because I don't represent everyone. That's not my role. But you know, Sue and Dana are very aware and know what we've been going through, and I feel like they're doing what they can. But we're feeling every day, not knowing what you're walking into puts a lot of stress on the situation. And I can't even count how many times that whatever I had planned for the lesson for the day had to be changed dramatically or scrapped altogether and started fresh for a variety of reasons, but usually because of a huge number of absences, both on the student end and on the staff end. I know myself, I have not had COVID. I've been very fortunate. However, I've had 4 instances this year that I've had symptoms where I had to quarantine. And even though I'm vaccinated, you know, I still have to get the negative results. It's a little bit easier now that they've changed it so that the antigen tests, you know, are sufficient. But I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I'm very nasally right now because I actually have a very bad cold. You know, but anyway, it's a very challenging time for students and for staff. And I think that we're hoping just to hear a plan for how we might attract more people to these positions. I think that was the ultimate goal of the letter, that be a focus of the work that's done. And I don't think anyone that I've spoken to is opposed to the plan that was rolled out to us about, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like a walkthrough method of evaluating teachers. I don't think we have a problem with the system. We just wish that some of the effort would be put into hiring more people to fill these positions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Crystal, for speaking. Sue?
Thank you, Priscilla and board members. Crystal, you're right. It's a walkthrough method, and as we discussed in the staff meeting, it's very different from what has happened in the past. But that is not really the issue at point. Priscilla and board members, I just want to go on record as saying that I really support my teachers at the middle school. We have an amazing cadre of extremely dedicated and student-centered and student-focused teachers who show up every day. And as frustrating as it can be to be told 5 minutes after you walk into the building, oh, yeah, 2 of your teammates are out today, so the other 2 of you have to absorb, 2 classrooms of kids, or whatever you had scrapped for today, whatever you do is fine. I hate being that person that has to say that to my staff. I hate that they have to go through that fairly regularly. We're 9 positions short, and on any given day, I can have 13 people out and with no subs. We're doing our best to keep the doors open, keep the lights on, keep the school running, and just do the best we can. I worry about my staff. I worry about their social and their emotional well-being and their health. I care deeply for every one of them. And I hate being put in that position where I have to unload more work on top of them at 7:30 in the morning. It's a tough year, and none of us could have predicted this. As Andy said, we have an admin meeting tomorrow, and in my former school district, we thought outside the box and about hiring staff. I'll share that with Andy and the admin team tomorrow. But I just really want to go on record as saying I support my staff. They're tough. They do what they need to do. They show up. They're there for the kids, whatever it may look like on any given day. And they make it work. And so I appreciate your time, Priscilla. I appreciate the board's time and for taking my staff's letter seriously. And I just, for those who are listening, and I reiterate what I said to them today in our in-service, that our kids are our first priority always, but my staff is also my first priority. So I appreciate the board's consideration of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sue. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I do know, oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Bill.
just to introduce myself, my name is Bill Morse, and I'm running for the vacancy on the school board. Was the policy, the mask policy that was to expire the 22nd of January, was that renewed officially?
It's changed, the mask policy changed by the state guidelines. It has not been stopped at this point.
Okay, so the
And we're gonna
policy,
cover that under COVID update in a few minutes, so we'll hear about.
so
those
the policy
things.
will remain unchanged beyond the
We voted to
22nd,
follow the state guidelines.
and we don't know if that's going to change in a week or two.
Well, when it changes, they let us know, and right now it's not, their masks are being still remaining.
Okay. How much do we pay substitutes a day?
Okay, we just increased the sub-pay in the district. It was, I think, $85, it's now $120 a day.
Okay.
And that was to hopefully attract. I don't know whether that's made any change at all in the subs that we've got, but if you know of any, you can, if you get on the board, you can't sub without a waiver. But if you want to apply to sub between now and then, I'm sure they would take that bill. Also, anyone out there that is able and would like to sub, if you would please contact the central office, because I'm sure that they could use that help.
Does the budget that you're about to approve, does that reflect this increase in sub?
We feel that the budget will cover
Absorb it?
what we need for subs, yes.
The money, the federal money that came to Vermont to deal with COVID-related issues, I think it's 1.8 million. Is any of that going towards education?
A lot of that goes to education. There's certain percentages that have to be applied directly to education. There's other things that are put in to support the schools and help with, for instance, the air conditioning and the air quality in the schools, updates that will help us, and a variety of different things. Those are ESSER funds.
Okay,
And we have a committee that works on that usually once a week.
all right, so that's ongoing.
That's ongoing, yes.
Okay, the reason I ask is I know that the latest amount of money to come from Washington to Vermont is being discussed. I know the governor wants to pay off some of the state's debt with that money. I know some of the other legislative leaders, the Senate president, for example, has other ideas, but you're saying that the formula automatically gives some of that amount to the schools.
Yeah, I'll let Andy address that.
Yeah, I think so.
So the school district received just over 20 million total dollars in ESSER fee funds through ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ARP ESSER, or also known as ESSER 3. And those are dollars that have been allocated when they were last year, and are monies that we have to spend up through September of 2024. And so in ARP ESSER, it indicates that 20% must be set aside for loss of learning. And then the district can use others to work on infrastructure projects and whatnot. We spent, of the total ESSER dollars, much of what's been spent has been on loss of learning and addressing summer programming, but also hiring interventionists and whatnot. So.
Okay, so
Okay, and I'm gonna cut you off right there because that's not part of tonight's meeting. And you can get that information through the central office if you want some more information on that. Thank you, though, for your questions. Do really appreciate that. Okay, yeah, so we have done some things and Andy's working on some other things, and I would like to put this on the agenda for the next meeting as well as for an update on the progress that we're making and what's happening, so that if there are additional people at the middle school that would like to come and speak, or the other schools in our district, they are certainly welcome to join us for a discussion on this at our next meeting. We just got the letter, like Andy had gotten it, and I just got mine, so that will give you some opportunity for other people to come if they would like to. I do know from personal experience it is very difficult to find people that want to. I'm doing some work that, because I can't get a caregiver for my own child, so it's, you know, I understand your positions and your lack of being able to get them, but if we can work on that, that would be great. And does anyone have anything else, or we can move on? Okay, So the next thing on here is unfinished business, which is our update on COVID protocols. And so Andy, I'll let you speak to that because they just changed. Some of
They
those
are
things.
very fluid at this moment. So I just met with the school nurses today, and we are developing a protocol based on the state's new guidance. Essentially, the new guidance, though, is a pivot away from surveillance testing. The main reason for that is that surveillance testing has not shown to catch a considerable number of positive cases. We do catch cases every now and again, but there's by and far, we're not catching the majority of our cases that way. The other part is that with the new variant, Omicron, the turnaround is such a quick amount of time for a person to be infected to when they're no longer contagious, that the time that it takes to do the PCR or the surveillance test, the person might already be out of quarantine by the time you're getting that result. So the state is pivoting more to a, not the test to stay program, but the home to test program, which would be that if there was a positive in a classroom, all the students and staff in that classroom were unvaccinated, well, everyone would receive home kits, and they would be the rapid test kits. And if someone is unvaccinated, they would receive additional testing material for testing over the 5 days. And as long as they're negative, they can continue to come to school. And then someone who's vaccinated would be testing on the 5th day, 4th, 5th day. I apologize, I don't have it in front of me. And they have to test twice in 24 hours, and as long as they're negative, they're fine to come. It's also changing how contact tracing is done. So it's not necessarily speaking with an individual and then trying to catch all the people that they interacted with in a day. The idea is it's presumed everybody in a classroom is a close contact. And so we're working on some of the logistics around things like the middle school here, and because kids they move, they're not all in the same classroom. So we're trying to deal with that logistics of that. And then the return to play protocol has changed slightly and has been updated, so we'll be updating that. And that's for interscholastic sports. And then the last one is that the mask mandate has been extended through February, or up to February 28th. And so it was supposed to be, it was being rescinded as of today, unless they gave new guidance. And so they gave new guidance to continue it through February 28th. They are also highly recommending a surgical to up to an N95 mask, and K95 is somewhere in the middle there. The issue with the N95 is that an N95 must be fitted to a person's face, and it seems to be extremely challenging to get pediatric size. The same thing with the K95, we're feeling that there are challenges in procuring those sizes also. So, but they are recommending that the cloth masks are less effective at this time. So that's kind of a snapshot of where that whole thing is. So.
Even to the recommendation in the thing I saw that, possibly wearing outside more than what we had in the past.
Yes, I believe it actually said inside and outside. I would have to dig through it.
It's this time of year, that's good. Keeps you
Keep your
warm.
nose warm, yeah, definitely.
Okay. And I know our staff in all 3 of our schools are great with giving breaks for those kids that need a break and need to have, a few minutes to be able to have them off and do that kind of thing. So we just kind of rely on all of you.
So I'm looking at it right now, just, this is what came out on January 13th. It said masks should not be required outdoors.
Should not be required, but, okay. So that's kind of up to families and up to children and everybody at this point. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay. Anyone out there that would like? Jason, I think you're only board member out there. Jason?
No, I'm good at the moment.
Thank you. Okay, so the next thing on here is budget discussion and hopefully an anticipated approval. So would you like to start with that? Andy, do you want to tell us about changes or?
So I think the, some of the big changes, went back and really looked at, I'll make that a little bigger. Went and looked back at our needs of where our student population is, how we might be able to effectively use our ESSER funds additionally. So what you see here, which is a little different from our previous presentation, is instead of what you saw in the last one was like it said middle school 7-8, middle school 5-8, middle school regular ed. I bundled those together because those are all classroom teachers at the middle school. And the salary line is the same amount of those three lines. And the 1.1 million in that first line reflects the current cost or obligation that we're paying the teachers with the 1.5% that was given last year. So that is where that piece is. What we're going to move to ESSER was one for next year. The middle school in-school suspension is what it's tagged as. We're looking at, we're currently piloting a model at Central. It's called ZenDen is the term. It's a tier 2 to tier 3 intervention, and tiers being in our multi-tiered systems to support with dealing with behaviors. It's an intervention model where students can go get some targeted redirection, but also if they're just having a bad time, some difficulty and need that, they can be there. So we'd be looking to move that position into the grant because that would fit in with the social emotional learning of students. Other ones, what we found was like there was substitutes for health in there, and the health is the school nurses, and we currently have the float nurse, so therefore we don't have a need for those substitutes. So just looking at the middle school and starting down, those are some of the bigger pieces in the middle school. You'll also see 5181. Which was non-clerical generalist. I went back and looked at that line, and that line hadn't been touched. So I didn't feel like it hadn't been touched in years, so it was something we should continue on. That's at 6288. As we go down into Central, one of the things we look to do, we are looking to look at all of our staffing of our classrooms. Right now, our numbers are trending that we may not need 10 classroom teachers next year, and that we're probably only going to need 9 classroom teachers. And so we want to look at where that impact is using our data. Right now, the numbers for like the second grade classroom are very low, but after looking at data, I want to leave that up to Carrie to kind of decide where's the best bang for our buck. We reduce down, let's say, third grade type of thing, and keep second grade because those students have a higher need type of thing. So we still have some data to crunch that we haven't gotten fully, but we're seeing that we definitely can support in our students with only 9 classroom teachers there. The other line is the paraeducator line. There were some mistakes made, and what appears to be is we have some behavior interventionists that are, we work with HCRS to bring in, that are there to support some specific students. And so what previously, and back up, Central used to always have paraeducators, and those paraeducators moved in, if they were warranted for student need, they moved into student services. So there aren't any regular paraeducators that are currently supported through Central. So we reduced that, we zeroed that line item out.
Just
Yep.
one question there on the regular teachers there. That's an increase over what you've given me.
As I said, that number would, when we met the other day, I said that number would probably adjust based on looking
Okay.
at some, going back and looking at some salaries and whatnot, so.
Right.
And so
Because
that,
there are music positions too that were in there.
yep, so that,
Okay.
that does reflect all of those positions.
Okay.
See if I go down through, in Saxon's River, what we looked to do was, again, some of it is that Zen Den kind of thing. Currently, Laura had a interventionist that was carried on the local side. We want to move all of our interventionists over to the grant, so that we can address intervention that way through that social emotional learning. So we're looking to move that position into the grant in that sense. The paraeducator line does go up. That currently is, there are some students who have paraeducator support written into some of their plans through regular education. It is potential that some of that cost may shift over to student services, but currently there's some students in evaluation process, so we don't know if they're actually going to be eligible for special education. And then benefits, again, what you can see here is I didn't go through and zero out all those lines, but here you see the middle school 5-6, middle school 7-8, and middle school regular education, and they're all bundled into one line. It was a little challenging to keep going through and sorting everybody out. That was the reason for the sake of. Some of the big changes you see in healthcare benefits, there were some inaccuracies in healthcare benefits, both pluses and minuses. Some of the big pieces were workman's comp was grossly underfunded. There were also places like for the middle school, you'll see here, what that's up on the board, the Visters OPEB. If you add up all those lines, they do not add up to $32,000, but the district's obligation is the $32,000 towards those teachers' retirement. So there was just some inaccuracies there as opposed to last year. But then there were other places that there were savings as it went down. So that was the same thing throughout all of the different people benefits. As we get into in-school suspension, with the middle school, this is in miscellaneouses. That line item was reduced by 1,000 because most of that will be covered under the ESSER grant. But for the most part, much of what is in our request for miscellaneous are things that are needed to continue on. We're also trying to write some things. Under technology, 55, 35 in the middle school. In the past, that hadn't been did. And as Ricky worked with the principals and went through, that is the correct funding. And so sometimes things were funded under different areas where they should have been funded under the school. So we tried to right fund that, which is where you see some of these swings. I think the only other big thing to pull out in the middle school, because I can't find the line, and Sue probably knows off the top of her head, there is one for music where we are looking to replace a piano at this time. So there is a $4,000 increase there.
It's on page 9.
I don't have page numbers, so I apologize.
Oh, okay. It's just I wrote piano.
Yep,
next
no,
to
no,
it.
yeah, no. Within central, and I'll go through this quickly, and I think the principals can answer questions a lot more granular, so I'll allow that. One of the first big ones is in 5341, which is regular ed psych services. You'll see it goes from 33,000 to 85,000. That is that adjustment for the para-educators that were up higher, and zeroing that line out. But that is the actual behavior interventionists that we work with HCRS through for the students. Other areas you see larger increases is mainly in custodial supplies, and that is to correct some funding that has not been there, and to ensure that we have things are up to speed and compliance, so that we can keep the building open. So that, in a nutshell, and I admit very quickly through it, but trying to hit some highlights in there of looking at it. Where that brings us down at the end is a total Rockingham request of $6,400,002, $402,000, $124.92. The next one is your bonds, and what you're responsible for there. And then the SU assessment, which brings the total ask at $9,697,976.38. We're happy to answer any questions if need be. So.
I'll make a comment. I think that obviously we've had a couple of iterations of this, and I appreciate the attention that you and the principals have spent on this. I think clearly I'm going to support. I'm very supportive of this budget. I think that most of the people that are listening in or that are here realize that behind these numbers are not only the regular grants that we have to enhance student learning, but we this year and next year we will benefit also from the ESSER funding. So I think the administration has done a good job of trying to take advantage of the ESSER funds and apply them to try to help our kiddos recover from this COVID, educationally and otherwise. And so anyway, I appreciate the effort that's gone in, and particularly under the circumstances, Andy has had to work with kind of one hand behind his back. I know the consultants that he's hired have been a big help, but this is not an easy process to go through, and I think they've done it well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. You may have answered this question before, and it's probably something, I don't know whether Sue wants to answer or Ricky wants to answer. On the MS Technology, 5535, there's an increase of $7,250.
Try and pull that up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was combining some items from some other areas within the budget.
Combined from some others.
And recoding some miscodings.
It's under the middle school, it's the line before the middle school benefits total. Page before that.
To their benefits.
The benefits is on page 10, and this is on page 9, but it wasn't helping him to tell him.
No,
page
so,
number.
so what color is it?
It's
That-
green.
It's in green, okay, and it's,
Okay.
and what's the dollar
And-
amount?
7,250.
So that was that, this is internet subscriptions, right? here.
Right.
Yes.
So, some of this was, and Ricky, here, correct me if I'm right or wrong, some of this was, things were being charged to the SU budget that were actually very specific to building level things. So that was some of the writing, or correction of making sure things are accurate where they are, what they're for, because, if you're billing them to the SU, then technically then they're getting assessed to other districts when they shouldn't be. And so, and then it comes back to then we can really look at each building and does that building need each one of those subscriptions that they're doing. So for some, sometimes you pick something up. I know like, Carrie, I know you're out there somewhere, I can't see you, but there's a system you use to send information out, like your newsletter or something, isn't there? There you go.
Called SMORE, SMORE.
So that's an example of and I think one of the things we're finding is buildings go out and get things, and now what we're gonna start looking at is, can we consolidate that? And do we have more purchasing power buying that at the SU and then everyone divvying it out? So those are the things we're gonna look at this coming year as we go forward, so.
Yeah, I
But
mentioned-
that one being up 7,000, and then if I look at the next page where I have supplies for tech related is down approximately the same amount. I've got 42,000, so what I was wondering was if that was split out.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, as Andy was iterating, it's correcting some of those miscodings, because each line is very specific as to what it's supposed to be coded to, and what is a subscription, what is actually a supply, what is a technical related supply. It's more of moving things around to where they should have been, yeah.
That makes sense.
So
Thank you.
that uniform, what was it? Uniform code of,
Uniform chart of accounts.
uniform chart of accounts basically says, so all these numbers, 5622, 5624, all those numbers mean something. And in the past, the attention wasn't there for all that coding to make sure it's correct. So when you go back, and it's something that, James, you've been very adamant about, and I agree with you 100%, is how do you know where you're spending monies and what you need? If you go back and look at your old expenditures and they're all hidden in I don't want to say hidden, but all in a big basket of technology, you don't know where those things are. And so you want to split those out and kind of look at it, so.
I think the other point is that I know Ricky has tried to consolidate, and a part of his budget at the SU is a system-wide internet program or software that all of the schools use. And then, so part of our job is understanding what's the building-specific ones that just don't fit that overall system-wide needs.
Now, does each one of the principals have a principal's fund? Because I saw that on Central, but I don't remember.
Does any principal want to tackle that?
Sorry, guys.
There should be in each school.
It may be put in differently. That may be what I'm seeing.
What specific line are you looking at, Priscilla?
It's right there.
I happened to come across.
It's 5619 in Laura's, right there.
Okay. So up on the screen, so under 5619, it's principal's funds, supplies, and it's $1,500. I apologize, I don't know what page that is on yours.
Because at Central, they also have a huge increase in the food budget as well as that one, so I didn't know whether those were two different things.
Yeah, so Central, or if you go into Saxon's River does have that as well. So there's 5631, there's a food line. And so then under 5631, we should see a food line in Central. And then in 56, and this is why those codes become very important, right? So in 5619, in the middle school, there's a principal's fund, supplies, and then, of course, I just forgot the other number. Oh, 5631 is a food line. So it is consistent that there is a principal's fund for supplies and principal's fund for food for their staff, for
Yeah.
PD days and stuff.
So Priscilla, if I could speak to the food increase at Central, what we had done was there's just a generic line item before. And so we ran it out, and when multiplied by the number of staff that we have by a certain amount of money. And so every staff member would be accounted for when we professional development, when we're ordering, say, a lunch or something like pizza. So that everybody's counted for, because it didn't give us enough money before to buy pizza or something like that for the staff on those PD days.
Makes sense, thank you.
And Priscilla, this is, let me turn my camera on here. Priscilla, this is Sue at the middle school. Like my two colleagues, we have a food line to provide snacks and food when we have PD, et cetera. But also in the principal's fund at the middle school, we do something called Terrier tickets, and we celebrate student success. And so a lot of, most of the money in the middle school principal line goes to purchasing those items that we give students to celebrate their success, just to kind of clarify for you.
Which would make it a little more costly. Because you have a lot more students. Okay. I mean, it seemed reasonable, it just popped up at me, and I just kind of had just a question, that's all.
You ready for a motion?
Just exactly, I think. That would be a good thing. Go ahead, Jake.
I move that we approve a Rockingham budget. I believe this is the right number. I saw Chris Kibbe's name up there at one point, so he'll keep us honest here, but I think it's the $9,697,976.38.
Okay,
That's the number I have.
bottom line there. Any discussion, Jason?
No discussion.
Are you ready for a vote then, guys?
I'm ready.
Okay, Jason, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 And I vote yes. Okay, so we have a budget. You guys really should be applauded, every one of you. You've done a marvelous job of working on this. I know it's taken hours to do this, so just thank you for working so hard. Okay, so the next thing on here is should we look at the equalized student sheet first, or should we look, probably the equalized student sheet first?
I'm gonna, Glenn's still here. Glenn, can I query you when we get to this piece? Are you still with us, Glenn? I don't see another, oh, yeah, there he is, okay.
I am here.
Just because it, I can pull it up there, but it sounds so much better coming out of you, so, and I mean that with sincerity.
Okay,
And let me get that sheet up here.
You don't have a copy of it, do you?
I don't, because it moves, as we adjust numbers here, it's gonna move. So, let me just get up, sorry. Get here, try to share screens, as long as we get on screen. Oh, okay. So this is what we're talking about, I believe. So here we would punch in that number that you did, 9. Can you read it to me again, Jigs?
9,697,976.38.
Oh, round. Yeah. So where that would,
Can I, while you're
Yep.
looking for that, can I also note that that is about $1 million less, a little over $1 million less request than last year. So our budget is really well below last year's.
that's where,
One of the, and maybe the consultant can, because I'm going to have trouble seeing this thing, but one of the issues that we face, obviously, with the disruptions in the business office is our surplus position at the end of 2021. The only thing I've had to look at was the 2020 audit. I noticed that there is a surplus there, shows a surplus there, and it also in a footnote shows that some of that surplus is committed. It was committed to, I think, capital projects and future year budgets. But I think understanding what the surplus is and what the board is going to recommend doing, or what the administration and the board is going to recommend doing with it, would seem to be critical parts of this sheet.
yeah,
And, without having the auditor here, without having any even preliminary numbers for Rockingham, it's pretty hard to really deal with this sheet, it would seem to me. But I'd love to hear the consultant tell me that I'm wrong.
Well, the surplus will
Your
be
query, Glenn.
in warnings, other warnings on the sheet. This is dealing with what the budget is
so,
and what we have already voted, what the voters have already voted.
Right. I mean, it's not what we're be asking to be
I agree, we need to know.
approved for taxpayers, et cetera.
so right now, there is a, fund balance of, just over $2 million. So I gave you that number,
Yes, and
earlier, and I'm
I had
trying
it
to-
written down.
so they've got like 6 tabs.
Let's see where I wrote it down. I think it's 2,268,000.
其实还 cancel 了70 cell。
That actually sounds light to me, because looking at the 2020 budget, the 2020 audit report,
It was 1 million.
the unrestricted surplus was $1,913,265.
At the end of the audit, it was 1,045,000.
I just received that. Now, there is a footnote that says that the assigned fund balance was 1,054,000. But like I say, I'm reluctant to subtract that and say that the unrestricted uncommitted balance is, 900 and something thousand, but, so it's,
Well, it was
with that, did I give you that?
45 last year, and now it's 2,268,000. That's up more than $1 million.
Well, like I say, you show me on this audit, where it
From what
says
Andy
it's
gave me
1,004,000, so,
It's 2,268,000.
I
Let's see
should,
where I wrote it down.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I've had
It's on the
I
sheet I didn't
apologize,
pick
a
up
lot of
probably.
back and forth meetings with them.
I need that too. Yeah, it's on here. I moved it when I was talking to Megan. I don't know what I did with it.
And I don't know if you can walk us through, this is, Miranda had sent this to me today. Why it's not sharing my screen, I don't know. Why is it not sharing my screen? Okay. No, this is old. So, no, this is right. So this was shared with me today. So this is,
these are her revenue projections for 23 and adjustments to 22, 21, sorry.
so what Miranda is projecting that Rockingham will have a revenue is $876,501. Adding that to the other funds that were already in reserve would take you over the $2.2 million in fund balance that you have available.
Well, actually, Miranda sent us,
That's the one I'm trying to find.
okay, it says that in 21, revenues were $10,655,000, expenditures were $9,894,000. The year began with a fund balance of $1,525,710 and ended with a fund balance of $2,286,844. $271,688 of that is committed. The remainder, $2,015,100 $156 is available. The committed, I'm aware of what 100,000 of that is. You had committed $100,000 to the FY23 budget to reduce taxes. The remainder, the 171,688. I do not know why that's committed. I will simply suggest that at this point, the $172,000 in a $2 million fund balance is something we can ferret out later when they finish the audit. The question I think before you is, do you have something that you wish to reserve those funds for? I would be reticent to use a large amount of that to reduce taxes, because it means that next year, as you begin to look at your budget, whatever amount of fund balance you have used will have to be either come from fund balance or you'll be short that amount of revenue. You do have debt. It is certainly something that you might consider. It is also possible to assign or ask the voters to reserve some amount of those dollars to be used in future years for tax stabilization.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we were in earlier discussions, we talked about roof repairs at both middle school and central. I know we want to take full advantage of COVID funds for as many capital projects as we can. But I think if there are issues like that that don't fall under that category, then I would think that would be a way to some type of a capital reserve specifically to accomplish some projects would be appropriate. I agree with you. It would be wise to spread it out over, maybe 2 or 3 tax years, rather than to spend it all at once. That would not be a prudent thing to do. And as we said, there will be life after COVID. We've all been wrong so far, but there will be life after COVID, and having some kind of reserve for future taxes could come in very handy.
And Glenn and I had spoken about that, of taking, going out over a few years, and instead of doing it all this one year, whether it's $100,000 each year for the next 3 years kind of thing, and then take the rest and put it in capital reserves. I don't disagree. I would recommend that as well. What we're looking to do is to whatever can get approved, because the approval process for ESSER funds is lengthy, is if they can, so they have to have, you can't just say, well, we need a new roof. You have to say, how is that related to COVID related issues?
Exactly.
And so looking at that, and if we can get things approved through ESSER, I think that's a great use of those funds, type of thing. But at the same time, if those dollars are set aside in there, you can use them for that or other capital improvements that may come up.
Can you give us that figure? That's our bottom line as far as what we have surplus.
The surplus?
Yes.
You're talking about the fund balance total, or the surplus for this year?
Last year, so that we know what we have available that we need to decide.
This would be the fund balance.
Yeah.
The overall fund balance?
It's $2,015,000. I will tell you, there are a couple of ways that you might approach this. The 21 budget or audit is not yet complete. If you wanted to look at the 20 fund balance of $1,500,000, you're within the statutory requirements to say, we would like to use some of that for tax reduction in current year and or future years, and reserve a portion of that for capital projects. Next year, after your audit is completed, you could deal with this additional essentially $500,000 more, just so you don't have to, in order to reserve these funds, you'll have to have an article in your warning. The board cannot reserve them, only the voters can. So it might be easier to suggest reserving $1.5 million as opposed to $2 million. And statutorily, you don't have to deal with that fund balance until you have an audit that certifies that you in fact have that fund balance. I would suggest that your 20 audit now is pretty clean. It's been adjusted. So I might suggest that you work with $1,525,000. $1.5 million is close enough. You don't have to really get it down to nothing.
I would agree with that.
I agree for someone, except I know in the past we've used the exact figures. That's why we
Yes.
came up with even ones.
The 1,000,005, whatever it was,
525.
1,525, is that also net of that 300 and some odd thousand, or is that inclusive of?
The $271,000 that's committed, that would still be, well, you've committed 100,000 to FY23. It's not clear, at least to the auditor, and it's certainly not clear to me, whether you committed something in fund balance to reduce taxes in FY22. That Miranda is suggesting that may be where the 171,688 came from.
The 171,688 was in a different voting.
So that was,
You got the
and
warrant.
it appears that it was not applied last
Should
year.
be in the annual.
Okay.
Years though.
Oh,
So,
That was from the fiscal year 2018 fund balance.
right.
And that was the $171,688.13 from the fiscal year 2018 fund balance created a reserve fund to offset expenditures in fiscal year 2022 in order to reduce tax. So that was supposed to go to reduce taxes this year, and it was not applied.
well, we're in 22.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It
Oh,
wasn't.
it wasn't.
It wasn't brought up in there. The other 100,000 was from 2020. It was 100,000 from the fiscal year 2019 fund balance to create a reserve fund to offset expenditures in fiscal year 2023.
Okay. Thank you. Now I can get rid of the question marks there.
Andy, I think we need to give you and the financial people a chance to go over this. And we were hoping to see the auditor tonight, but we obviously aren't going to see the auditor.
They were operating under the, and I apologize for the confusion. They are preparing to be at our February 1 to give you a finalized audit report. So that was where they were looking to spend their time. You know, I can get them available for another meeting.
And I think we just need to be prepared to do the warrant.
Right.
Yeah, we need to have the figures so that we can put in the warnings that we want for saving for the reserves for other years and for putting in the capital reserve. so that taxpayers have a chance to vote on it.
Yep, I mean, the numbers,
We didn't
Glenn,
have
is-
that option last
Right.
year, nothing was available to us, and so,
the numbers, the numbers we're talking about are definitely in line with the conversation I had with Miranda and that Glenn's talking about. And when Miranda was telling me, you know, the 2.2, she was saying, this is all the money your fund balance is. And so some of that is this year that hasn't been finalized. So that would take you down to about 1.5 million that you have available to you to utilize to put on a warrant. So,
okay, because the 100,000 has already been voted, and 171,000 has already been voted, where are those going to be placed? So that when we're asked that by taxpayers, we are able to answer those questions.
Glenn, where would those end up, that 270,000?
Well, when you look at the revenues for the current year, you will include the $100,000 that was voted to offset
This year.
FY '23 taxes. You certainly could, because it did not appear in the budget it was intended, include the additional 171,688, but you don't have to because it was not done appropriately. But it might be logical to do that.
And that's shown on, I saw the 100,000, I think, when I was looking at the equalized students sheet.
Yes.
Wait,
There,
if I
right.
share it again, Ron? I don't know what I'm.
Did Ron answer my question? Is the 271 included in the 1,525,000? Or is it in addition to the million?
That's committed.
It is included. It is part of your fund balance that has been committed.
Part of it?
Yeah, the 2,286,000. Yeah, that's part of that amount. And he's recommending that we go down to this amount because this one hasn't been audited total.
And Glenn, we'd be plugging it in on this sheet?
Well, it's part of the line 10, the offsetting revenues, which is surplus, tuitions, donations, categorical grants, et cetera. Do you have the little budget revenue worksheet that I emailed off sometime earlier today?
Yeah, let me.
It's an Excel worksheet, quite short.
I want to. At the same time, I'm used to having multiple screens, so I can move through things. Not this one, not that one. Not that one, there's another one. See, it won't come back. Set the lead right here. Stop sharing, so I don't have a pool completely. You do this again.
It says FY 2023 revenue budget.
All right. Sorry, I'm so used to now working on multiple screens that I can't operate with one screen anymore. All right, there we go. So this one, all right?
Yes.
I'm gonna make that bigger.
So included in this budget, you can see the prior year fund balance as revenue. That's the $100,000 that we know should be in this year's revenue. And you can change that depending on how much you wish to put there.
So you're saying if we made that 271,000,
688. Oh, you need to, I'm sorry, we need to change this, the 10,060,000. That was this morning's budget number.
Okay, so this is that 9, yeah.
Oh, sorry, not, yeah, go ahead. Yep.
697.
9,697,000.
Cents.
697.
1,976 and 38 cents.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, does tuition,
Yep, Glenn,
tuition should factor in?
right here, Glenn's got that. I was just about to point that out to you. So Glenn factored in Westminster at 700,000 and AFRAF at around 200,000. Interest earned was about $500.
You'll send us all these
Yeah,
tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, we need all of that stuff to be able to do the warnings and to be able to decide which ones we want.
I think we agree with, what is the,
Glenn,
Glenn? I think we agree with Glenn that if we don't have to deal with the 2021 surplus, but can concentrate on the 1,525,000, which already includes the 271.
right. So if we're taking that out,
Then we can maybe have a quick meeting tomorrow night and finalize the numbers. You've warned the meeting, so,
Yes, I have a meeting one.
because I'd like to think about it too in terms of, and I'd also like to, have a feel for, I would hate to go to the voters and say, we want to put a $500,000 capital reserve. And, if I was in the audience, I'd say, well, what do you need 500,000 for? Well, I'd want to be able to say, give them some information.
so I can get that from Jim DeBell and from Rick Schuman.
And I think,
Yeah.
so we need that kind of information before we do. I also think that given the numbers for this year, or for next year, that we shouldn't do more than the 271 in terms of applying surplus to the taxes.
So just
So,
doing the quick math, if the 1.525, and then taking out the 271,688, you're down to, just so you have numbers in your head, $1,253,312.
Give me that one more time.
$1,253,312. Then if we want to spread some of that out over years to help offset taxes, but then what do we want to put in a capital reserve?
I would like to put something in a capital reserve.
I think
Yeah, I
that's
think so
very
too.
smart, given the age of some of these buildings, and,
We've
but
got quite a few capital.
But I can also
things
get,
that have come up.
I can get some harder numbers from Rick Schuman that, like, if you had to do the roof, what are we talking about? Because this roof is very expensive. Central is not a flat roof, so it's not going to be as expensive kind of thing, so.
But I thought that Glenn was saying we could do the 1.5 without worrying about because it's actually up around 2 million. So that gave us the 500,000 and it gave us leeway.
So Glenn, I guess the question, and maybe I heard it wrong, of the 1.5 million, does that include that 271,000, or is that?
It does. It does include it.
1,200,000
So,
53.
so they would have to take that 271 out first to then think about what to do with the rest of the funds.
Correct.
But that still leaves probably the 500,000 extra or more that we've got from this year.
Right. Next year, when you do your budget, you can deal with the unaudited fund balance that you can deal with then.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if we were talking about $300,000 or something, but we're talking about $1.2 million. So it's a lot.
Okay.
So will you have you'll have some numbers for us tomorrow, and maybe you can bring copies of these,
Yeah. Yeah.
these sheets. And,
I didn't copy these sheets because Glenn, as Glenn had said, like you see up there, it says you can change these numbers. I knew we might be changing numbers, so if I bring them in, you might as well adjust them on the fly a little bit, so.
So the 271,688 is those two figures, the 171,000 and the 100,000.
Correct.
The taxpayers have already voted.
So that's the money that should have been applied in FY '21 and the money that
22.
should have been in FY '22.
no, the
No.
one.
Pardon me,
that's
FY
applied-
'22 and the FY '23, pardon me, yes, yeah.
Right.
Put that in there.
And the total local revenues of 1,171,000 is what?
That's the tuition. You know,
Glenn, the 1.1 million here, total local revenues,
Well, it's the 271,000, and the tuition from Afton, from Grafton, and Westminster. I would guess.
I think we might have lost Glenn. People are having connectivity issues. I know,
That's right.
I know we lost there. Oh, Glenn, the
Yes.
board here, the total local revenues you have at 1.171, what does that represent?
It is the $500 of interest earned, the tuition, and the fund balance as a revenue. So that reduces your ed spending to $8,526,000.
So this line 10, which is the total local revenues, is representative of the sum of all the yellow above it.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And you'll give us that page? you
Yes,
said?
yeah,
Okay. All right. So we have the bottom line of the budget voted tonight, and we will be able to do the warnings tomorrow night.
Yeah, why don't you bring the warning in, and we'll pull the numbers in
Yep,
at our meeting.
we'll do that.
I'll draft it
Is
up.
there any other issues for the warning besides?
No, basically, and I'll work with Nicole on that wording again tomorrow. The legal voters, it reads, the legal voters of the Rockingham Town District are hereby notified and warned to meet in the theater of the town hall with Zoom available on Monday, February 28, 2022 at 7 p.m. and to adjourn to vote by Australian ballot. And we're going to put in the ones and to vote on, oh, wait a minute, it's on the other one. I had to pull two of them. To act upon all matters which may be voted upon by acclamation and not otherwise to be voted upon by Australian ballot. And then adjourn to the Masonic Temple in said town at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, March 1st, 2022, to vote by Australian ballot on article, and that the number of the article will be the one that has that 9 million in
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and it'll have the equalized spending in it, which it should be lower than last year, I would hope. since we're
It's
saving
already
money.
just based on the numbers Glenn sent me and we adjusted some numbers and whatnot, it's already a lot lower. That equalized pupil spending, so it's gonna be down quite a bit.
Right, and then our very and then we'll have a one for capital, reserve fund, and we should have at least 2 or 3 for future years.
Future years, yeah.
And then we'll have the last article to see if the Rockingham Town School District will vote to pay its district officers. And then the first article is to hear the reports of the Rockingham Town School District officers for the last year and to take action thereon.
Do we have anything that authorizes the treasurer to borrow funds or anything like that? Is there a?
No,
That's
not in a warning. We can vote on that at a meeting.
Okay, we don't need the voters
No.
to do that, okay.
No.
Because
We
the
have
town, in the town village, they have to,
We've
They have an
never-
article.
We've never done it, but I know it's been voted at meetings.
yeah, okay.
It actually went away several years ago because the statute changed and allowed school boards to borrow when necessary to meet the needs of the school district.
Right. Okay. Glenn, I really appreciate all that you've done as well. You're certainly helping us out a lot. So, okay.
Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah,
Thank you. Anything else that we need to do tonight? Okay, then I guess I would entertain a motion for adjournment till tomorrow night.
I'll move adjournment.
Well, thank you. Jason, okay?
Sounds good. Yes.
Yes,
And
I'm gonna ask that, do principals need to be here tomorrow night, or are we okay with them not being here?
I think we're okay with,
All right, thank you.
and thank them so much for being here too. We do appreciate all the time they put in.
Thank you.